Although the social isolation policies that resulted from the COVID-19 pandemic did potentially protect tens of millions of people, they're not completely without consequence. Sure, they're effective by reducing your risk of getting the virus, but they also have significant implications on your mental health. And this is more important than you may think, because for quite some time now, we've known that your mental health and well-being does impact the functions of your immune system. Today, we're going to go over one of the quintessential studies in the field of psychoneuroimmunology, and we're going to learn just how close the mind and body really are. This study was originally published in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine in 1991 by Sheldon Cohen and his colleagues, and it's one of the best-known studies that suggests a strong association between psychological stress and your body's immune function. In this case, stress is defined as a negative emotional or cognitive state that arises when someone has no ability to cope with the demands of a certain situation. So what makes this study so special? Well, simply put, the authors were able to give viruses to patients and showed that those who were more stressed tended to be more susceptible to those viruses. The authors took some 400 male and female subjects, all between the ages of 18 and 54, who were completely healthy and free of chronic illness. Each subject was given a questionnaire that assessed things like major stressful life events, how they perceived those life events, what coping mechanisms they had in their life, basically trying to quantify the psychological stress of every patient. After psychological testing, blood samples were taken from these patients to assess their baseline antibody levels. And finally, the patients were ready to start the coolest phase of the experiment. The subjects were divided into 6 groups, and each group got a different type of nasal spray. The first 5 groups got a nasal spray that contained a low dose of a common virus, and the 6th group got a nasal spray containing saline, which just acted like a control or a placebo. Everyone was then placed under quarantine for the next week, either alone or in groups of 3, and physicians would come in daily to monitor their symptoms for things like coughing, sneezing, watery eyes, you know what the cold looks like. Finally, a month later, the patients came back for a second blood test just to test their antibody levels after being infected with the virus. And now the results. The authors actually found a number of really interesting things. First, in terms of full-blown symptomatic infections, which the authors considered colds, those who scored higher on the psychological stress index tended to have higher rates of colds, up to 47% for the highest level of psychological stress. Higher psychological stress was also associated with a higher overall infection rate, with those at the highest level of psychological stress having a 90% infection rate. Of course, the exact rate of infection did depend on the virus that was given, but in each case there was this dose-dependent effect, meaning that those who scored higher on psychological stress indices did tend to have higher rates of infection to the virus. Another interesting find was that this effect held whether the patients were seronegative or seropositive, meaning that even patients who had antibodies before getting infected with the virus still tended to have higher infection rates if they scored higher on the index of psychological stress. What this could mean is that a high level of stress could subdue your body's immunological response to the virus, and that could get you sick. Now, it's important to remember that just because you have a really high level of stress doesn't mean you're going to get sick 100%, and vice versa. Just because you have absolutely no stress doesn't make you completely safe. But what this study does demonstrate is the importance of psychological well-being, because poor mental health can make you more susceptible to getting physically sick. And given the current COVID-19 pandemic, this is extremely important. So how could you improve your mental health during social isolation or quarantine? Exercise is one thing that comes to mind because it has not only the cardiovascular and physical health benefits, but also huge benefits for your mental health and well-being. Another example is meditation, which has been shown to alleviate stress and depressive symptoms. Seeking out assistance and socializing with friends and family can also help, and is not only a great coping mechanism, but can also help fight the loneliness that many are feeling during this social isolation period. In fact, a similar study that examined the relationship between loneliness and immune function found almost the same thing as this study. Those who are more lonely tended to have higher rates of viral infections. So keep in touch with the people that you love, protect your mind, and stay healthy. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to leave it a like down below and subscribe for new content every single week. My name is Evitar Fields, and on behalf of Bite Size Science, stay healthy, stay positive, and have a wonderful day.